Welcome back to another edition of My View from the Piano Bench, my perspective from where I sit. So I hope you find this interesting or informative or not totally boring. Thanks for being here, and thank you especially to those of you who support and encourage me via the links available on the support page of my website, and you'll see the links in the description of this video. So the topic for tonight I've called Strike Up the Band, and I have a particular place I'm going to go with it. I haven't seen too many movies. I'm not a big movie watcher. It's hard to sit still. I can go literally years without watching a movie, going to the movies or on television. I can go months without turning a television on at all. But one movie that I've seen several times is Mr. Holland's Opus. And you know the story that Mr. Holland, if you know the story, was a musician and was encouraged to go to school, get an education degree in case he needed a time where he had to have a regular job while he was trying to get his career going, which never happened, and his career was as a school teacher, and he accomplished many wonderful things being invested in what he did, because that's what musicians do. They become invested. So let's start with Mr. Holland before we go past that. Like I say, it's a feel-good story. You know, I could pick it apart a little bit and don't entirely relate to it, but for anything I might pick apart from it, the whole of the thing is just wonderful. And one of the scenes I remember and thinking about it today, I haven't seen it in a long time, but a memorable scene is investing in one girl who's a clarinet player, and through his encouragement, the girl played not particularly well, but then all of a sudden the band became Acker Bilk's band, and she became Acker Bilk. Who's that, you say? It's a clarinet player who recorded Stranger on the Shore. And basically meaning that his investment in the kids turned what they were doing into something beautiful. Or something like that. And I decided to play this, and now I realize I'm not sure if I exactly remember because I haven't played it in a while. Let's see what happens. There we go. A little stranger on the shore, and as it turns out, I really didn't know it that well. But hopefully you knew what it was, even though I didn't play it quite correctly. So the idea of getting a music education degree is a version, although arguably not this, but a version of the fallback of, the music business is tough. What are you going to do when you don't make it? You can teach in school. But of course, a lot of people who are musicians decide to just go into some unrelated line of work. But for me, if I were to do something like that, a school teacher would make more sense. Except I have learned for me that it doesn't make sense. That's coming up. But the music business is a tough business and not for everyone. And many people, a steady paycheck and the normal sort of experience. And I'll tell you, you don't get that, but you don't need me to tell you, even if you're not a musician. You can imagine, I'm sure. So when I graduated high school, I was expected to go to college. I was given the opportunity to go to a state college. At that time, state colleges were affordable, and it wasn't ridiculous like it is now. So I went because I was expected to, wasn't invested. Some of you know the story. Dropped out after a year. Came back later to finish. But that first year, I was a music education major. Again, because that was just the expected thing. I wasn't a piano performance major. I was not planning to be a classical pianist when I grow up, or when I would grow up. Silly me thinking I would. And there was no jazz program. It would have been interesting if there were jazz programs in colleges, particularly my college at the time, what I would have done. But I was in a classical track, but I wasn't a piano performance major. So I was music ed. And I remember the courses that I didn't like. You have to actually take individual instrument courses if you're going to be a school music teacher. You take a flute class, you take a violin and strings class, you take a brass class, you take a percussion class. So you kind of learn the instruments. And if you're not a pianist, every music major has to take piano class. And I guess there's a guitar class too. I did a few of them. You don't have to do them all when you're a freshman. So the only music ed I got was when I was a freshman. And the one class about educational, being a music teacher stuff, I forget what the class was called, but center of gravity about being a school music teacher. There's two things I remember from that class. One thing I remember being taught, and it's the only thing I remember, that the teacher would encourage us to wear bright colors on rainy days. There. here's that rainy day, and here's that music teacher wearing a pink and green outfit. I don't know. Why do I remember that? The only other thing I remember, not from the classroom, but from that course emphasis, was going to a psychiatric hospital to do a project. I don't think it was a research paper so much, but it was a report. I'd spend a day observing music therapy, which in the late 1970s still was relatively new. It started in the 50s, and the psychiatric world was where it started, and it was quite eye-opening. And I didn't do it out of particular interest necessarily. I don't know. Maybe I had choices of things or something, or the fact that there was a psychiatric hospital nearby made it easy. I don't know. Not too many years after that, I wound up living in an apartment complex for several years, right up the street from that hospital. The annex. Yeah. Felt like it at times. I get those stories about my apartment complex. And when we had a fire a few units down, I was on the downstairs floor, and fortunately my building was half burned, but my apartment wasn't. Sleep was still disrupted that night. But then the person, why am I telling this story? But the person who lived upstairs was displaced in the upstairs apartment. Well, no, I told that wrong. Not the person who lived upstairs from me. That apartment was vacant, but the person who had an apartment that was burned out was displaced and moved above me. She was a bit noisy, but I got used to it. But then there was one morning that I had some friends over, and I didn't pay attention to biscuits in the oven. I was cooking breakfast, and I burned the biscuits, and I left them in there for like wait. You could have hammered nails with them, right? But I guess I exclaimed, "Oh no! I burned the biscuits." Well, the woman told me later she was upstairs and she was getting all freaked out because she smelled something burning again. She had a little PTSD. And then felt a lot better when she heard me yell that, "Oh no, I burned the biscuits." So I saved her from some distress. What did that have to do with anything? Anyhow. But of course, the music therapy thing, if you know anything about me, became important years later. And it certainly, in my view of things, from the piano bench or anywhere else, that there's a big picture component to everything, because everything is part of a whole. Ultimately the entire whole. Not a hole you fall into. Although I do that very, very well. So anyhow, I spent my first year in college, and I didn't have a good attitude toward learning. I did not in high school either. And I had a similar grade point average, which wasn't really that good. And I dropped out, and I spent a few years out. And when I went back to learn. I didn't go back because I felt there was a credential that I needed. And in fact, I wasn't planning on using the music ed credential, right? But I had this opportunity to go and just learn stuff, and I did. And instead of being a music ed major or a performance major, I just dropped down to what they call general music. No band for me. Yahoo. Especially marching band. Ugh. Never liked it. like that. 76 trombones in the Sore Thumb Parade. Uh, Again, too much information, but this usually happens in the winter, but the weather has been a little wonky lately. I get these finger splits, and there's a painful one right in my thumb, and if I slather myself in hand lotion for a while, it softens up and it's okay, and I forgot to do that. And I don't want to get up and play with hand lotion in the middle of this video, so I'm sort of favoring my ouch time here. Way to give an excuse for sloppy playing, isn't that? Yeah, isn't that wonderful? Not really. So, a few years after I graduated with a music degree, so I can legitimately say I'm a college graduate with a music degree, a general music degree, a liberal arts version of a music degree. You know, the majority of the courses are music, but not a giant majority. And I still have the, requirements and stuff I had to do. But a few years later, after I graduated, communications began happening that I did not initiate. It came to me from a private school who wanted to start a band program. It was a Christian school, and they wanted to hire a part-time band director to build this program from scratch. Well, I thought about it, and if you've heard me talk about music therapy, when I was introduced to that, the opportunity came to me, and I'm like, okay, let me do this. I'll learn stuff. Yeah, and had been. I'm always game. Different stage of life now, but at that point, I was always game to trying things, but didn't try it as a career path change. I certainly didn't with music therapy, and didn't with this. It was a part-time thing. I did it on the side, and just became even busier than I already was for the time that I did it. For me, it was an understanding that this was just off to the side. But this is one of those places along the way where some people who were around me who always wanted me to be normal and get a normal job and not be a musician. He's like, oh, he's going to get a regular job. He's going to be a school band teacher. No, I'm sorry. I'm going to disappoint you. Sorry about that. But I'm not sorry about that. sorry now, not me, I didn't do it, whatever it was. Well, actually, maybe I did, in the eyes of some. But we'll get to that. So, yes, for one school year, September the summer, I was a middle school, high school band director, and there was real interest in building this band program. And we had people contributing money to buy supplies. I think we had one instrument we bought, and there was a lot of enthusiasm. And it's like, you know, more enthusiasm than was actually able to be accommodated. But it was a good thing, you know. But there's a lot of heavy sports emphasis at the school, and so kids who were in the band also played sports. And it's like, how do you schedule that? And my line was, not that we had a football team, but my line was, you can't play on the football team and march in a halftime show at the same time. Well, I'm sure some people have, just to make a liar out of me. So the one thing that I learned about myself there is that I don't have classroom management skills. No. I gave it my best shot. Okay, so I wrote down tunes to play that I haven't played in a long time, and I don't remember if I know them. This is another one. And I only wrote this down because this is like one tune, one of two I remember us doing, you know, with the band arrangements you buy from, you know, whatever, Hal Leonard or whoever. Well, one of the tunes was Stars and Stripes Forever that we did because I had a hotshot flute player who had a piccolo who could play the piccolo part, right? And the other was, you know, a popular Disney movie at the time. Let me see if I remember. Yeah, Beauty and the Beast. I sort of remembered it. Anyhow, so I've never actually told this story publicly. I've told it privately to people, and I'm purposely not naming the school. But it didn't really end well because during that school year, and this was in Delaware, right, where I was living at the time, or close by. I think we might have moved to Elkton by then, Elkton, Maryland, which is near Delaware. The opportunity came out of the blue to work down Atlantic City and work the showboat, which I wound up doing 6 days a week for a fair amount of time, commuting from Elkton, Maryland to Atlantic City, 2 hours each way, and keeping everything else I was doing, including the school. And it's kind of interesting commentary that the entertainment department at the casino knew I had the Christian school gig, and they were accommodating with my shifts. My job at the casino was I was at a solo piano station in the hotel lobby. There are musicians all over the place, often bands, but my station was just there by itself. And we had 3 piano players who rotated shifts. It may have been 4 of us actually, rotated 3 shifts a day, but I was there 6 days a week. And if I could, make the change with somebody else, they were fine with it. I think they actually adjusted a shift change for me once. So they were accommodating of me working the Christian school. But you think the Christian school is accommodating? No, it caused a little bit of flack. And they came to me at the end of the school year because someone had complained. I wasn't making a big deal about it at school, but I was asked to resign. It's kind of like we weren't seeing eye to eye. Now, I was going to go right into this tune and realize I forgot to remind myself what the bridge of this tune is, and I may really screw it up. Well, let's see what happens. Cut the whole thing off right now. I should have just not played that tune. Yeah, because I remember the few times I played this tune, I get mixed up about what the 2/5 is. Do you think I'd find it and I'm trying to fiddle out in front of you? Oh, what a ridiculous hour this is. Are you still even watching? No, you're probably asleep. Or you've turned me off by now. So anyhow, that was something that I handled incorrectly because I accommodated them. And I should have made them fire me. But after I accommodated them, I understood why. I'm really talking more than perhaps I should, but you don't know where this was, so that's fine. I accommodated them, and then I learned why, because they were not going to be forthcoming about it. And, I don't have a lot of experience in my life as an employee. Uh, and it's good because I'm not cut out to be an employee. And I admire, I respect people who put up with nonsense from bosses and put up with not having autonomy, knowing what to do and not being allowed to do it. Uh, no, no, doesn't work for me. And I have a musician friend of mine who's also an antique dealer. And I say to him, Mike, occasionally I'll say, Mike, there's a reason we're both self employed. And we get a little laugh out of that. So I agreed to resign and then was told, don't tell anyone why. And I discovered that allowed the school to tell people who were inquiring, where did Joe go? Where's this band program I donated money to? Well, he took another job. Oh my goodness. Yeah. I regret not refusing to resign and being fired. So it would be right up front what happened. Do I understand why some people would want that? Yes, I do. I do. And it's a situation that they didn't want. And in all likelihood, a big donor complained. But the whole politics nonsense of that is just nonsense. And at the end, it's like I'm told, consider yourself, not one of us. Go. Consider yourself out the door. Not the bad taste in my mouth. See, I needed a mint for the bad taste in my mouth. And that was only like 30 years ago. It's ridiculous. Actually, no, I'm ridiculous. I'm looking at the title. Let's call the whole thing off. That was ridiculous. But anyway, uh, okay, let's stick with the school teacher thing for a little bit. So I have a number of musician friends who had careers, and I think they're all retired now from public school, and there's a pension there for you, and you can't necessarily live on it, but musicians never really stop working, and it's a kind of a casual thing. They can gig and they can make up some of the money, and that's one of the realms that musicians use to have a regular job. It may be less applicable going forward when there are fewer jobs as music teachers in schools. But I know people, and related to one, who's the school music teacher, and it's a wonderful calling, and these are by and large wonderful people who do this. Another avenue that musicians will use, if they're really crackerjack players, is to try to get in the military. And all the militaries have bands. And we have a lot of military musicians and the retired musicians in the area where I live. So I'm not super far from Annapolis and all things Navy. And so a lot of retired Navy musicians are out there, including half of the Shobert Shires, both Steve Abshire and Scott Silver. And if you can pull that off and you get your 20 years in, you can retire, you can get your pension, and you could do your part-time thing. So that isn't what I did, because I always saw my identity as a full-time player. And I probably had mentioned this before. My dad would always want me. He didn't really understand the temperament of a musician. I was the only child, and he was a career military guy, and didn't try to steer me into all sort of outdoor things and everything, and always wanted me to have the security of a day job, like be an accountant or something. What? Yeah. And I finally was able to say something to him to make him stop. He kind of got it. Said, "Pop, I have my hands full with one career. How do you expect me to manage two?" One of the things that I'm going to write about, and it just went out of my head just like that. Things are sailing all around. Okay, I can't tell you what I have it written down somewhere. I'm not going to look, but yeah. Okay, so I just demonstrated why I couldn't possibly be an accountant. Okay, because things like that run away. You try to put your ducks in a row, and my ducks are always swimming in whatever pond I put them in when I try to line them up. And they're moving, so I can't shoot them, but I'm a terrible shot. Anyway, so what I was going to tell you was that the dedication of the school teachers is tremendous. And a couple of the musicians in the Madeira band over the years are now retired from school teaching. But we would do the festivals, and they would take off. And one of those musicians, they would take off as little as possible, actually. That was the point. And so Danny Tobias, I remember one year we did Pismo, and we came back Sunday night. They actually flew you out on Friday morning from the East Coast to Pismo, expected you to play Friday night, Saturday, Sunday morning, and possibly early afternoon, or possibly mid-afternoon, and then put you home on a red eye Sunday night. Oh my goodness. And what did Danny Tobias do when we got home at like 6:30 in the morning? He drove right to school and taught. No way. That opens up a whole nother can of something. So he was teaching. I was like in dreamland. had such a headache that morning, because you can sleep like an hour on the plane. At least I can't. I can't sleep sitting up. And then it's just you're done. You're wasted. Oh, so great respect to Danny. Now that he's retired, he still does things like that to himself. I saw on Facebook where he was playing with a band who was doing a swing dance in essentially Greater Washington, D.C., Glen Echo Park. And that was a Saturday night. His wife drove him, and guess where he went from there to a Sunday brunch gig in New York City. It's like, I'm glad he can do that. I can't function that way. So my friend Paul Mediri is not a school teacher, but at this phase in his adventure, he's established himself as a private percussion instructor in Lower Delaware. And when the playing hadn't been so much lately, and it's picking up a little bit, so he really isn't doing much gigging. But he said, and this is really super true, he said, I consider myself in music just as much. If I'm teaching or playing, I get fulfillment out of either side. So the teaching thing is absolutely a way to be a musician and make it work. And I used to do a lot of piano lessons when I was younger. Go to people's houses. I mean, younger meaning like a teenager, and have my driver's license. But for better or worse, for wisdom or stupidity, I don't know. I've always just considered myself a performing pianist. And anything else that I do, including teaching, or when I had the actually half-time church position, Church of Nazarene, that to me was something on the side. The music therapy, for sure. The job at the Christian school, for sure. This is what I do, for better or worse. And it does really require full-time. That was what I was gonna mention. And I'll just air this a little out right now. Every once in a while, this is unrelated to this, sort of, I'll have somebody kind of challenge me a little bit as to why I don't have a day job, because what I do is obviously not full-time. And then I have to try to explain how many hours of the day I devote to particular things. And it's just like, no, because in that mindset, working is just, you're doing something because someone's going to give you money. And a lot of what you do, and salesmen go through this too. A lot of what you do does not generate money because you do it, but it sets you up to be in the position. Especially like salesmen who remember back when big pipe organs were a thing, and big organ salesmen, they wouldn't sell that many of them because they were super pricey, and they made a lot of their commissions on single sales. So they could go a long time without a sale. Were they not working? Were they only working when they signed a contract? No, they're working all the time. It's hard to make people understand that. And I finally came back with a comeback. It says, no, I don't have a full-time job. I have an all-the-time life. I don't turn the television on. I don't socialize much. I'm doing this all the time. And the temperament of the musician, it's like that. And musicians are often very generous with their time. And I'll end with a story that I've told before, but it fits here. And that's one of my high school band directors, the one that was there when I came in as a freshman. And he was extremely giving of his time, nurturing of the kids. And he knew that I played ragtime music in my piano lessons. And I was being exposed to jazz, through that window. And he wanted to have the freshmen be featured in the, I guess it was the spring concert. And he made what he called the freshman ragtime ensemble, and basically just built it around me playing the entertainer, but then wrote the individual parts for the other kids. We had a trombone player, we had a clarinet player, we had a trumpet player, and I'm not sure what else we had. Probably had somebody playing snare drum, right? And this is long before they were music manuscript programs. And he decided it would be better for the other students if they played it in the key it was written in, if they had B flat instruments, and I played it in a different key. So the entertainer took me 2 tries to play it clean. That's not good. Okay, so I want you to ignore all the piano playing on this video and just remember what I said. Or maybe I don't want that either. I don't know. But yeah, one of those somethings. And he rewrote the entire thing in B flat. One, it's trickier to play. Two, I was never much of a reader. I could read, of course, but sight reading was never my thing. And I had to, in manuscript, he handwrote the entire thing, all the sections, a whole step down. It made me do the transposing, reading what he wrote. I can't imagine. It would take me weeks of doing nothing else. No, not really, but kind of to do that. Did I mention ADD? No, implicitly, perhaps. But he sat at his desk and hours, I'm sure. It didn't happen quickly, and many things like that with Paul Maybury. Just Mr. Holland, man, he was invested in what he did. So I'm just going to end playing the entertainer in the original key. Thank you very much. course, what I should have said is I'm going to play a few notes from the entertainer, and then I'm going to make everything else up. But you know what you're going to get from me, don't you? That's good. Could you tell me? Because I have no idea. So I'm looking up here at my notes, and I had like a list of other tunes that I might fall into, and there was one I skipped over because I didn't really. I blew past where it was going to fit, and now I'm thinking of it differently, and it's "Whistle While You Work," because I am conscious of that. I allow myself to be noisier than I used to allow myself, particularly when I do this, and so I'm making all sorts of sounds, right? So maybe that should be my theme song, but it's not "Whistle While I Work." It's I don't know, grunt and groan and I don't know. You have to tell me how to spell any of that. So I'll go out with that. Be noisy while I work. Be noisy while I work, right? Yeah. Be happy. Make the best of it. And I am certainly blessed to be able to say that my work is to be immersed in this. And you helped me to do that. Really appreciate it. So, yeah, again, probably too much information, but because of my schedule this week, and I'm going to have to not play the piano for a few days, I'm putting these recordings in a little earlier, and this is not the ideal time of day for me to do this necessarily, at least for today. So I got through it. I hope it wasn't horrible, but the show must go on. And that's another topic I'm going to talk about at some point. If you're doing it, you got to do it, and it has to show up and it has to be there. I had my first little cheat with a Sunday evening hymn last night, or maybe not my first little one, my first slightly bigger one, where I posted a hymn instead of recording one because I was in a similar situation last night and it just wasn't working. So I just gave up that this is Monday and not Wednesday, because I'm not going to be in any condition Wednesday to play the piano. And on Sunday night, I just wasn't getting it done. So I found the video I posted from 2010 of Amazing Grace, a church concert in Florida, and posted that. So, but I do want to be consistent with this content because it's important to me, when I can count on somebody, and I want you to be able to count on this. So, anyway, thanks so much. Always appreciate it. The music business is coming back. If you live on the East Coast or anywhere near me, there's things happening. Hope to see you. Thank you.